All right, last you saw this thing was actually running, so I put the grill back on and put the radiator in and started messing around with getting the coolant system hooked up. So I figured I'd do a quick video to just show the modifications I had to make to the coolant system to get it to work. So when I say modifications that I've made, some of them obviously are not complete yet. But starting down here, the original radiator had the lower port down there. So I took this up to J Mills and he welded a cap on that and then welded another neck down there. And then I just trimmed the 88 S10 lower hose a little bit so it'll fit on there just fine. And then now I've got to deal with the upper hose. So this is the Jeep hose that I got from Walks back when they were still selling stuff, and you can see that it's a little odd. So the S10 neck had a bend pointing that way, like right into the radiator. So I messed around with trying to get it to work, and I just couldn't find a way to get it to work. I don't have any way to weld aluminum, so it's not like I could tack another neck on here and then take it up there and have it welded. I tried with the kind of aluminum solder kits, and it just made a mess. As soon as it would wick on, it wouldn't really get a good adhesion to this part. It was getting good adhesion to the thinner neck though. And so I'd apply more heat and then it would just all melt and the part would fall apart. So I spent some time on it yesterday, retrying, and then just gave up. And obviously this part is now pretty much trashed. This hose, you know, it's not going to be long enough. So this is what I came up with. I got a straight small block Chevy neck. This is what I got. CarQuest 84830. It was actually at the auto parts store. And I just decided, all right, I'll make it work. A lot of things don't necessarily want to work with it though. So I put this caliper on the outside of the lower portion, which should pretty much match the upper one. Actually, the upper one looks like it's a little bigger. So that's what this dimension is basically the gasket surface. And so when this neck goes down on top, there is just not enough of a surface here to pinch the gasket. It's all going to overhang. So I'm going to probably chuck this in the lathe and just take it all down so this is all flush. And then I will take a measurement of basically, well, this part right here. In there, which I don't think it even needs to be that big, but somewhere around there. And then just give it a really small pocket for the thermostat to fit into. And then these holes are also too far apart, as you can see. So I'm going to mark that. This is an awesome marker. But yeah, I'm going to mark that and then put this in the mill and just plunge, zip, zip. So the holes will be slotted close enough together. And then I'll surface this and then put the pocket in there, matching this depth. And then this thing will work. It'll be big, but I already set it on there. It's not going to touch anything, despite it being super close. Like, look at all that clearance. Got lucky there. Did not measure a thing. Anyway, that's it. And then I have to wrestle around with how I'm going to make a hose fit. Really all I need is a 1.5 inch hose with a 90-degree somewhere in it. So maybe I'll buy a silicone hose instead of messing with all this. But for the time being, what I'll probably do is cut this. I've got this pipe here, and I could weld, because this is stainless, it's not aluminum. Summit 1.5 304 stainless. So I could weld a bead on there and basically just cut it just long enough to where 2 clamps will fit it, put 2 beads on there, make that a joiner. Cut this hose right there, clamp that, and then, basically just take another little piece of hose that fits on the neck. So that'll probably get me through today, because I don't think really anything's open. And then I've got heater hose to deal with. I've got the heater control valve, I guess it's called. And interestingly, there's a 74627 and a 74628. The guy was telling me one's for Dodge vehicles, the other was for Ford vehicles, and this is what came out. They are exactly the same thing. Same direction of rotation of the valve and everything. So I went ahead and bought both of them. One for the Jeep, one for the Falcon, because I've been driving around without one and it gets a little warm. So that's kind of what I'm doing with the coolant system. And then I still need to crank it up, give it a little more timing. I did go ahead and richen the idle mixture because it stalled last time. It was idling at a really low RPM. So there's a few things that need to happen. I'm going to leave the throttle stop where it's at for now, give it more timing, see where that picks it up, and then actually connect to the carb cheater so I can check RPM and AFR and actually do some tuning. But yeah, I have not even started this since the last time that it idled and I videoed it. I just went and got the coolant stuff that I needed because I want a cooling system before I start tuning on it. All right, I'll update when I have updates. All right, first 2 operations are done. I took a 3/8, went in on both sides. The bolt is an M8, so 3/8 is considerably larger than is needed, but it'll be fine. And then I took my pretty large 2 flute. What size is this thing? Inch and a quarter. And basically 30 thousandths at a time. Actually, it was 20 thousandths at a time. I just kept going down until that pocket disappeared. And this surface was not perfectly parallel to the top surface, so there was about 15 thousandths difference between this end and this end, but that's fine. I was just making a pass, and then the third pass I would make a return pass, and then on the last pass with a 15 thousandths depth, where this was aluminum but I could still see the blue over here, I just kind of came in this way and then maneuvered the X and the Y to kind of do a circular pass on it. And it feels pretty good. I mean, porosity is going to be a bigger deal than any of my tool marks. So next, I'm going to put it in my mini lathe and then just do a really small, about 30 thousandths deep pocket there for the thermostat edge to go into. I doubt if I even need that, but I don't want to destroy my gasket over there to measure it. I don't know, maybe I'll don't have another thermostat. The gasket sits on top of the thermostat there. So what I was measuring was basically the opening in the other one. Now I remember this thermostat did kind of move around considerably. So, and I want to say there was a pocket in the bottom too. So it might not even need a pocket in the top. But I'll give it one. I'll just have to measure out. Oh yeah, I wanted it 220. So I'll measure it out, put some more die chem on it, mark it, and then cut a little pocket. So there's the finished part. Right on there. Yeah, I cut that, not thinking. I mean, I probably should have trimmed this whole wall down, which I could still do, just to give it some more clearance to the fan, but it ain't gonna hurt anything. The one-handed YouTube video. Oh, I love it. At least it went through. All right. Looks like it's gonna work. Excellent. And then I just have to figure out a hose. Oh, and find the bolt that fell through. Oh, it really took off, didn't it? Okay. Well, no idea where that went. All right, this is it. Iron Duke is running. I actually got spent a good portion of yesterday getting the throttle cable all hooked up and cut to the right length and everything, getting a gas pedal in there. You can tell that I wrapped that up kind of towards the end of the night there. But it's in a good place. And I put that little patch underneath it just to seal up the hole where the old linkage went through. We've got great oil pressure. It's starting to come up to temp. I did get the alternator working, which was simply taking the darker wire here and putting it to switch 12. The other one is the diagnostic port. So it's just unterminated down here in that loom. And I connected the fan, so it should turn on at some point. But this is actually going to be the first time that I let this thing come up to temp. Man, that's so close right there. I just feel like I'm going to have to do something about it. But not today. I do not have the carb cheater hooked up because despite ohming it out and what I thought was the TAC output of the HEI module, I wired that to the TAC input and it's just not getting any RPM. It's just reading 0. So, I'll mess with that some. It's pretty funny, I just started it up today, put it in gear, it wouldn't back up. I had the transfer case in neutral. So for a second there I thought I was going to have a problem, but it seems as though it is going backward and forward. After it comes up to temp and the fan cycle, I might actually take it around the neighborhood a little bit. Try out some of the second and third gear of the transmission, because it's got a new synchro in there and it's really tight. But yeah, that's it. It's quiet. I'm pretty happy about it. Exhaust is pretty close to the master cylinder there, so I'll put a heat shield in there. I'm actually about to go out of town for about a week, so basically I'm gonna pull this thing right back in here and that's where it's gonna stay. And then I've got other stuff the week after that, and then there's Christmas, and then right after Christmas I'm going out of town again. So like, this is a kind of ridiculously busy portion of the year for me. Oh, and I did hook up the PCV. When I blew on that, it was totally plugged, so I went and bought a new valve. It's free, and so that's probably why it's running a little bit leaner. I don't know. 12 13. It's actually pretty happy. So that's pretty much the last update on the engine swap. Hopefully from here on out, it'll just be anything you see of this will be me taking it on trails and stuff like that. Alright, so I'm going to take it around the block. The clutch does grab really close to the floor, so that could use a little bit of an adjustment. Things seem to be going pretty good. Engine vibration noise, I guess because of those European motor mounts. Temperature got hot, and then the thermostat finally did open, and now it's doing fine. I had the fan turned on once. Haven't turned on since. Definitely got a good bit more torque. That's 5 years. Into first. Tires are good and flat spotted. It's back, and it all went pretty well. I got a little carried away there. So I never even counted where the idle mix screw was at. It's out almost 3 turns. So whenever I cut that video there and said I'm going to check the AFR, it was cruising it fine because, you know, I had the idle mix screwed out enough. And then whenever I would lean into it, it would go 16-to-1 lean or leaner. And then if I was able to let it get through that, the secondary would start flowing and it would go into the 10s rich. So it would go really lean and then really rich. At one point in time, I did actually hear it ping lightly, so I got out of it. It's only got, I think, 28 degrees fixed timing everywhere, so not a whole lot. But even with only 28 degrees timing, it feels like it has more torque than the old F134 did. So I'm happy with it. The other kind of boneheaded thing I didn't even think about was any sort of way to retain the battery from like sliding into the alternator. But hey, it wasn't a long trip. Just kind of drove up the road, turned around, came back, and fortunately everything's still where it's supposed to be for the most part. So I've got my jet kit over there. I don't even remember what I put in here. I did go bigger on both the primary and the secondary, knowing that this engine was bigger and likely a lot more efficient due to the higher compression. But surprisingly, it wasn't enough. So I'm probably going to go big on just the primary, leave the secondary where it's at. The secondary might even have to get taken down a little bit with the way it got really rich after it got after that lean spot. But like I mentioned earlier, I'm kind of out of time, so I'll just set my jet kit here on the fender and probably leave it there and not mess with it at all, other than like crank it up again and just idle with no fuel pump to get the gas out of the bowl. And then other than that, I'm going to clean up a little bit, get my engine hoist and my trans jack out of the way. and maybe get that F-134 out into the shed. I don't know. That's going to be a hassle because it's heavy. So that's pretty much it for me. Jeep is, finally able to be driven again.